A wedding trip, often called a honeymoon, is undoubtedly a significant event in the life of a young couple. It can leave vivid memories from an unforgettable adventure, or serve as a much-needed escape from the monotony of everyday life. Perhaps on the azure coast beneath the shade of palm trees. But what if your honeymoon turns into a nightmare because you either commit a serious crime or are falsely accused of one? Would the honeymoon still feel joyful and carefree then? I don't think so. It would certainly be unforgettable, but not in a good way. Isabella Rodriguez, later known as Hellman, was born in 1975 in Colombia, a country where Spanish is the only language spoken. Isabella truly dreamed of the American dream. She bought English books, listened to songs on the radio, all to learn the language quickly and set off to conquer the northern continent. While she succeeded in learning English, her southern accent stayed with her forever. Nevertheless, this didn't stop her from moving to Florida, finding work as a real estate agent, and helping Spanish-speaking clients rent or buy homes. In February 2002, although luck wasn't exactly on her side, Isabella married William Hellman. Although the couple was married for 10 years, their relationship was marked by constant arguments and domestic conflicts. Eventually, their patience ran out, and they decided to file for divorce. The divorce process dragged on for a lengthy 2 years. During that time, Isabella met a new man who, she believed, would bring her true happiness. His name was Lewis Bennett, and he was from Great Britain. As a child, Lewis's family relocated to Australia, which granted him dual citizenship and allowed him to return to his homeland to graduate from the prestigious Camborne School of Mines. However, Lewis never ended up working in his chosen field. Whether that was fortunate or unfortunate is unclear. But just a few years after graduating in the UK, he went back to Australia and launched his own solar panel manufacturing company. Remarkably, the business thrived, and within 4 years he expanded into the American market. With his main office based in Florida, the ambitious Lewis started searching for a wife online. These days, meeting someone online seems easy, often even easier than in person. Yet Lewis struggled for a long time. He skimmed through women's profiles without giving them much attention. The ones who messaged him first either frightened him or failed to spark his interest. But when he saw Isabella's photo, she reminded him so much of Jennifer Lopez that he decided to reach out to her. It's worth mentioning that they exchanged messages frequently, and for quite a long time. Isabella shared how she had always dreamed of moving from Colombia to America, how long she had been learning English, her job search, and eventually even confided in him about her past relationships. Lewis wasn't bothered by any of it, especially since Isabella's divorce from William was imminent. As for Isabella, she seemed exhausted by her past relationships and the lengthy divorce process that drained her emotionally. Taking the lead, she suggested meeting in person and began traveling to wherever Lewis was, whether England, Australia, or even Thailand. In an effort to impress his new partner, Lewis bought a catamaran, planning to sail the Caribbean Sea with Isabella. This was a childhood dream of his, since frequent moves made it hard for him to make friends quickly. So he often spent his free time reading adventure novels by authors like Jules Verne and Robert Louis Stevenson. Bennett admitted that Treasure Island was his favorite book, perhaps fittingly, as it would later have significance in his life. Isabella spent every free moment, whether on vacation or long weekends, traveling with Lewis. She also noticed that during these lavish trips, Bennett seemed to almost forget about work. Of course, it could be explained by how automated his company's processes were, allowing him to enjoy life more freely. Still, Isabella grew concerned. She once tried to discuss this with Lewis, but he either brushed it off with a joke or seriously claimed he had inherited a large fortune and had nothing to worry about. Satisfied with this explanation, Isabella let it go. Then, in July 2016, the couple experienced a joyful milestone. They welcomed a daughter, their first child, whom they named Amelia. For both Lewis and Isabella, she was their very first baby. However, soon after, young parents began to clash, disagreements that weighed heavily on Isabella given her difficult past. They couldn't agree on how to raise their daughter, or even in which country Amelia should grow up. Lewis strongly insisted that Amelia be raised in Australia near his parents, while Isabella was determined to stay in America. Eventually, Lewis relented, and in 2017, the family relocated to Florida. Despite already having a daughter, they decided it was time to finally get married. Isabella pleaded with her now husband to take a honeymoon, hoping the sea voyage would rekindle the carefree spirit they shared when they first met, sailing around islands on his catamaran. Lewis listened to her wishes and promised a honeymoon just a little later, and he kept his word. In late April 2017, after returning from Australia, the couple set off on their romantic cruise. At first, judging by the social media posts, everything seemed exactly as Isabella had hoped. In every photo, They were smiling, embracing each other, and exploring the Caribbean islands together. But after those endless honeymoon snapshots, a long silence followed, lasting 2 weeks. When Isabella finally appeared online again, she told her family that she and Louis were in Cuba and planning to return to Florida, though they hadn't decided how yet. She also mentioned the poor signal there, warning that they might not be reachable for a few days. Then, on the night of May 15th, the Coast Guard received a distress call from Louis. He said he was alone on a raft in the open sea. Rescue teams immediately launched a search for him. Louis was found near the Bahamas, truly alone on a boat packed to the brim with various supplies and belongings. Once ashore, he shared his story. On May 14th, after a long and exhausting day, he asked Isabella to take charge of the catamaran while he rested in the cabin. He was later awakened by a loud thud from below and called out to his wife, but received no answer. When he went upstairs to investigate, he found Isabella nowhere on the boat. The impact that had roused him had caused a hole in the catamaran's hull, allowing water to flood in and the vessel to begin sinking. Louis believed his wife had been swept overboard by the force of the blow. Since she was wearing a life vest, he assumed she was safe. To avoid going down with the sinking boat, especially with their child aboard, he gathered his belongings and climbed onto a nearby rescue raft. When rescuers inspected Louis's life raft, they were surprised at the items he had brought, only his personal possessions, as if he had no hope Isabella was alive or would be found. Among his belongings was even a tea set. They also discovered aluminum tubes containing hidden silver coins in his backpack. But this finding was overlooked, as the urgent priority was to continue the search for Isabella. The Coast Guard deployed every available resource, including helicopters, to search the entire area, but their efforts were in vain. They did locate the catamaran Louis described as having crashed on underwater rocks. However, there were no underwater rocks or reefs near the site, nor had the boat completely sunk. Authorities decided to conduct a thorough inspection of the vessel and sent divers to examine it. Once again, the divers' findings contradicted Louis's account. As mentioned earlier, no underwater rocks existed where the boat was found, making a collision impossible. The holes in the hull were clearly made from inside the boat, not from external impact. Another startling detail was that all the escape hatches on the catamaran were wide open, something that would have sped up the sinking. Yet, Louis's story claimed he had left the boat over the side as expected. Escape hatches are strictly meant to remain closed, and should only be used as a last resort to abandon a sinking vessel. Despite being an experienced sailor, Louis did not activate a beacon or use a satellite phone, tools that could have helped rescuers locate them quickly in an emergency. From the outside, it appeared as though Louis had deliberately sunk the catamaran and staged the incident as an accident. But then, where was his wife? By May 17th, the search for Isabella was still ongoing, even though 120 hours had passed since the catamaran went down. Given that a person's chances of surviving in the open sea dropped drastically after about 13 hours, hope was fading. On May 18th, the search was officially called off. Isabella has never been found. Meanwhile, Louis returned home on May 15th, seemingly unconcerned about Isabella's disappearance. To add to the suspicion, he booked only a single ticket back to Australia for May 19th. It seemed Louis never truly believed the rescue team would find his wife, dead or alive. Yet, he pushed hard to obtain her death certificate quickly, so he could claim the insurance payout he was entitled to as a close relative. The insurance company, however, denied his claim. After that rejection, Louis went to Isabella's parents and tried to take custody of their daughter, Amelia. They blamed him for Isabella's disappearance and refused to give Amelia to him. Louis only managed to take Amelia after involving the police. On May 28th, he left his daughter with his parents in the UK and returned to Florida to continue pursuing the insurance payment, which he was legally entitled to receive. To the authorities, Louis's actions appeared highly suspicious. They were almost certain he was responsible for Isabella's, but lacked concrete evidence. The catamaran, where the crime might have occurred and where evidence could have been found, had sunk to a great depth, making it impossible to retrieve. The search of the home Louis and Isabella shared, along with Louis's personal cell phone, yielded important evidence. While the fact that the couple hadn't communicated for weeks and that Louis occasionally disappeared for long stretches wasn't in itself proof of wrongdoing, what was found inside the house raised serious concerns. Recording devices were discovered, containing Isabella's accounts of constant threats from her husband. These recordings revealed that Louis repeatedly threatened to kill her. Isabella had even confided in friends about these threats, sharing her desire to escape her harsh and cruel husband. Yet she hoped to give their relationship one final chance. Unfortunately, as we now know, she never managed to break free. The root cause of their conflicts was Louis's mounting debts. Real estate, electricity bills, credit cards, all piling up. Lewis was literally drowning in debt, and escaping that financial hole seemed impossible. Instead of tackling his problems, he continued to spend time sailing on his catamaran, remained unemployed, even used some of his remaining savings on hobbies like Thai boxing. Naturally, Isabella disapproved of this lifestyle. Meanwhile, Lewis pressured his wife to give up raising their child and find a job so she could help pay off his mounting debts, while he focused on more important matters. During the investigation into Lewis Bennett's finances, authorities discovered that between 2014 and 2016, he had made international transfers totaling around $160,000. It also came to light that the rare and collectible silver coins rescuers found in Lewis's backpack were quite valuable. Later, the investigation revealed that the coins were stolen in 2016. One of Lewis's acquaintances, who was a crew member on the ship Kitty, had stolen the coins while the crew was ashore, and then handed them over to Lewis for resale. It was this act of smuggling that ultimately landed Lewis in jail. During a search of his home, police found some of the stolen coins along with the tape recordings. For smuggling, Lewis was sentenced to 7 months in prison. While serving this sentence, he was also formally charged with involuntary manslaughter in connection with his wife's disappearance. The investigation meticulously examined every piece of evidence they had painstakingly gathered, and concluded that during their trip, Isabella discovered the rare collectible coins among her husband's belongings, sparking a heated argument. However, it remained unclear whether Isabella was killed on the boat or drowned in the water. During the intense and at times violent quarrel, Lewis may have either struck her too hard or thrown her overboard without offering any help, resulting in her drowning while he watched from the boat. After the tragedy, Lewis seemed to realize that his wife's death could benefit him financially. By staging the incident as a boating accident, he could claim insurance not only for Isabella's death, but also for the sinking of the catamaran, both in short events. Yet, from the prosecution's side, this scenario was dismissed as the grieving family's speculation. Lewis was never charged with premeditated murder. Due to insufficient evidence, prosecutors offered him a plea deal. If he pleaded guilty, he would face only 8 years in prison. Lewis accepted the plea deal, but if he truly was innocent, was accepting it the right choice given that the only solid evidence against him was a tape recording where he threatened his wife. Isabella's family was understandably outraged by the verdict, yet they also recognized that without the plea bargain, Lewis would have served only the smuggling sentence and likely been released soon after. In November 2018, Lewis Bennett was sentenced to 8 years in prison. All insurance payouts and Isabella's assets, which Lewis had sought to claim through this whole ordeal, were instead awarded to their daughter, Amelia. Additionally, the court ordered Lewis to pay monetary compensation to Amelia, acknowledging the serious psychological trauma she would face as she grew up. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night.